Hey, I'm Mr. Eazi with OK Africa, and this is Moments. Chop Life sound system is my way to just like be free and just like escape, because like this music thing don't tire person. Like it's like you need to put out an album, do this, do that, do this, do that. But with Chop Life sound system, I can just make any music I want to make with DJ Edu, and then just start the world just partying. And it's been fun. I've been looking forward to every show. There's been no rules. I've been wearing my singlet for most of the shows. Yeah, it's just been a fun time, and looking forward to doing more of sound system stuff next year. I think whilst creating Chop Life Sound System Volume 1, I realized that my piano is not just what we hear in the Lagos club or in the Accra club. You know, it's easy to think, especially as an artist, it's easy to just think, oh, I know everything. Or like when you listen to some playlist or some DJs, like you see all these amapiano mixes and you think you know amapiano, but it's like, so being in Cape Town in December, going out to those parties, hearing just instrumentals, and like I was shocked, frankly, especially like since we work with major league DJs. We put out Empower, my label puts out balcony mixes, albums. So I thought like I knew it until I went there in the club and I realized I didn't know anything. So it was very educative, and I left, by the time I was leaving South Africa, I had even more respect. I've always respected South African music, but I had even more respect for South African music. Yeah, I was just, you know how like when I meet people and they say, oh, Mr. Eazi, your song it was therapeutic, I listened to it through this part of my life. Sometimes I'm like, come on, it's not that deep. I was just singing, there you go. Like, how deep could that be? Not disrespecting my music, but it was the first time my music was therapy for myself. So first of all, it made me kind of realize that music can be used as a tool for therapy, even self-therapy. I remember one time I was saying producer, I'm like, why am I just singing about all these things? Like, I just want to sing about Bum Bum, but why am I singing about like haters and singing about God and my mom? Like, come on, man, I don't want to sing about this. But yeah, that's one of the things. But secondly, like with the art, I guess I've always been looking for a way to express myself beyond the music. And for some of us that, you know, culturally, we don't like to, it's hard for us to talk about how we feel. Or frankly speaking, for me to express the music that way, it might be harder to bring it out. And so I found the art, visual art, as a way to express myself and to express like the true essence, the true spirit of the songs. I'm trying not to sound too deep, and you know, by working with all these artists, I think I've been able to achieve that with this project, that the spirit of the song is not just trapped in the instrumentals, but also trapped in the physical pieces. And just the fact that now Africa, like what it means to be African, is now even more powerful, because we have the soft power, you know, and soft power is not just music, it's film, it's art, it's culture, and it's just so beautiful to be able to marry it together. Like, just imagine like an African movie, you don't need to go holler Michael Jackson to clear his records. You could use a Mr. Eazi song, and you could have an African movie with African music, and you could have designers' clothes, and that's the power that young Africans, both home and abroad, are having from every country, every 54 individual countries. Because Evil Genius is like a bad guy name. It's like Evil Genius, get down, and everybody's like, why is they calling him Evil Genius? So I think there's a ring to it, first off. But beyond that, the whole idea, I was trying to name the album. I remember, you know, since we were in Cotonou, and one of the foremost religions in Benin is Voodoo, and when we searched up Man at the Crossroads, we saw Legba, and we had this symbol for the album. And my mom is Christian, so I was like, if my mom sees this, my mom is gonna be like, oh, we need to take it for deliverance. It was kind of deep, and I did not want to I didn't want to appropriate, I think it's wrong to just pick an element from a religion and then sell, right? I think religion shouldn't be sold. It should be experienced. And so we couldn't use Man at the Crossroads anymore. And I was just thinking, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that during the time I was making the album, I'd become obsessed with my image, like what people think about me. So I was in this hyper sort of like people pleaser mode. And by the time I was done with the album, I was like, no, I don't give a fuck like what you think about me. And that was because internally, and say, who do I think I am? And I picked sort of like the worst thing I'd heard about myself. Like, oh, somebody had said, oh, somebody thinks Eazi is an evil genius. And I remember how I felt so bad about that. So I was like, okay, I'd accept that negative image. And then in accepting that, introspect, and then define myself or describe myself through that introspection, through the songs on the album. So when you hear track 1 to 16, you should have met the evil genius. And by the time I was done the album, I was like, oh, what are people gonna say about it? They're gonna like it. I actually don't care. Like, I'm just happy to be able to make this album and put out this record, because that's what it is. It's the record of 2-3 years of my life that I can share with humanity. That's a great question. There was a time in my life where, part of my identity was the people around me. So I paid so much attention to the people around me. And at some point in my life, I then, felt alone. I started feeling more alone, even though there were so many people around me. And in those times, like when you feel so alone and all you have is yourself, to be able to look at myself in those moments and say, okay, I really want to find out like who I am. And I'm still on that journey. And I'm not perfect, so far from perfect, but just even learning what my trigger points are, learning things I like, things I don't like, and learning to say things that I want to say, to communicate better. And I've seen how that has sort of like made me feel freer and made me less stressed. And that's why I'm just so happy for the gift of music. In the process of making this music, I started to, embrace the concept of therapy. Before now, I was like, why are people going to therapy? Just go and pay somebody to listen to you, and then they become, time up, $100. Like, why? Or even just speaking to people. But in speaking to yourself, and by the time you get so comfortable speaking to yourself and telling yourself and hearing yourself, you then get comfortable in communicating. Yeah. The funny thing is, I was having this conversation with like an older person, and she was saying how, there's this African adage that says it takes a village to raise a child. And like deep within our culture was that whole thing of sharing. Like when a woman, in some cultures, when a woman is about to get married, she then goes with her aunties, with the older women, and stays with them for a while, and they teach her things. And you have in a lot of cultures, lots of manhood, becoming a man, and the role of mentors. And some of these mentors were just people you could go speak to. But I think with globalization and with everything just mixing up, we kind of like every one of us becoming more individualistic. And as human beings, we are not yet. The programming might come later. I don't want to get into my alien shit, but I think we're programmed to be in communities and to share things. Development has just made everybody just become so into themselves without sharing, and that's very hurtful. So I think it actually is in our culture to share, in a lot of African cultures, but we just lost it. We don't even want to talk to our mommy and daddy. Songs were made in different African countries. I recorded some songs in Ghana, in Rwanda, did I even record any song? I've even recorded some song in New York by Haitian producer Michael Brown. Recorded some songs in LA, recorded some songs so as I traveled across Africa, I was making this album. It wasn't like I purposely said, oh, I'm gonna make this sound. I didn't know how the album was gonna sound when I started. I didn't even want to make an album. But as I traveled, I guess that sips in. And you can hear La Group Teriba from Benin singing in Yoruba, Oluwajo, Wagbemisoke. You know, you could see the guitar riff, very high life riff on Fefenefe. So yeah, it just happened that as I was traveling, I guess, you know, influences were sipping in, and I ended up making something that sounds quite Pan-African. My favorite song on the album right now is Panadol. Because of how it starts, it's cold. And anytime I start songs with such powerful lines, I'm like, jeez, Jay-Z ain't got nothing on this, man. Boom. Yeah. Favorite feature on the album? I think it's really hard, to be honest, because like every feature is like different, and there's not a lot of features. Like, for instance, I never thought I would work with Soweto Gospel Choir this early, and then I worked with them. I like Joe Boy just coming in, and Joe Boy was just supposed to just come in and say hello and leave the song, but he ends up like talking about his life on Zuzu Lakate, and La Group Teriba came, and every time I play that intro, people are saying, who are the guys on the backing vocals? So I think everybody just brought, you know, from not just the vocal features, but the producers, so many producers. So I think it's the whole thing. I'm just grateful for everyone coming together to believe and put in their energy on the album. There'll be no Mr. Eazi without Nigeria and Ghana, period. Like, because that's, you know, that's who I am. I'm a product of my Nigerian upbringing, musical influences, and my Ghanaian, you know, sort of like coming of age, because I went to Ghana, frankly, when I was 15 going on 16. Like, what did I know? That's like my first time out of the house and learning a lot first and listening to hip life and, you know, doing parties there and sort of like hearing the music in the clubs. I think I'm lucky, you know, I'm just blessed. And the more I travel, the more everything builds on top of that. On the base of it is my Nigerianness, and built on top of that is Ghana. And then there's so much built on top of that, as we all human beings are. You know, our DNA is telling us one thing, but where we grew up is sipping into our definition of ourselves, the people we hang out with.